A groundbreaking philosophical masterpiece that overturns common sense, yet misunderstood as a synonym for pessimism. Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Representation, published in 1818, may not have sold like popular novels, but it profoundly influenced countless great figures, including Nietzsche, Wagner, Tolstoy, Freud, and even Einstein. It is not a dry academic treatise, but a ruthless analysis of the essence of life and a path to liberation. Why does this book, spanning 2 centuries, still shock the soul and allow readers to see hope amid suffering? The World as Will and Representation is a milestone in the history of Western philosophy. Schopenhauer uses it to challenge Kant's rationalist tradition, proposing that the essence of the world is the blind impulse of will, while everything we perceive is merely the illusion of representation. The book does not stop at abstract speculation. It points directly to the root of human suffering and offers a unique path to liberation. Today, let us enter Schopenhauer's world of thought and explore how will dominates everything, and how eternal peace can be attained through aesthetics, morality, and asceticism. Chapter 1: The World as Representation. First aspect: subject and object are inseparable. Schopenhauer opens by stating outright that the world is first and foremost our representation. This is not a casual claim of idealism, but based on a simple yet profound observation: all experience occurs within the subject. Without a subject, there can be no object. He builds on Kant's framework, but makes a crucial modification. Kant believed space, time, and causality are a priori forms imposed by the subject on the phenomenal world. Schopenhauer agrees, but further emphasizes that the law of representation is the principle of sufficient reason in its 4 forms: the reason of becoming causality, the reason of knowing logic, the reason of being space and time, and the reason of motivation action. These 4 forms govern all representations, making the world appear as an ordered whole. Imagine a painter facing a landscape. Mountains, rivers, and sky are not independently existing things in themselves, but representations in the painter's perception, constrained by spatial position, temporal sequence, and causal connections. The painter himself, as the knowing subject, is inseparable from these objects. If the painter closes his eyes or walks away, the landscape ceases to exist for him. This does not mean the world exists only in an individual's mind, but emphasizes that the world we can know is always the product of the subject-object relationship. The subject does not passively receive, but actively constructs the framework of representation. Schopenhauer uses a vivid metaphor: the world of representation is like a dream. In a dream, everything feels vivid and real, yet it is entirely constructed by the dreaming subject. Upon waking, we know the dream was representation. Similarly, the everyday world is representation to us, only more stable and shared, because multiple subjects have similar perceptual frameworks. The 19th century British explorer Richard Burton, while traveling in Africa, recorded his experience of desert mirages. Distant oases appeared real, but were merely illusions of light refraction. This reminds us that sensory representations often deceive, yet they constitute our entire experiential world. Burton later wrote that in that moment, he deeply realized that what the eyes see is not necessarily true existence. Schopenhauer further distinguishes between animal and human representation. Animals have only intuitive representations, while humans add abstract concepts. Reason allows us to organize representations with language and science, but it also distances us from pure intuition and plunges us into greater desire. The principle of sufficient reason manifests in humans as motivation. Actions always have causes, but behind those causes lies the drive of will. Through this chapter, Schopenhauer lays the foundation, The task of philosophy is not to inquire into the thing in itself, but to analyze the structure of representation. Ordinary people often assume the world is an objectively independent entity, but Schopenhauer gently yet firmly points out that this assumption ignores the role of the subject, leading to shallow materialism. He criticizes his contemporary Fichte for absolutizing the subject as the I that creates the world. Schopenhauer insists on the unity of opposition between subject and object. Only in relation do they have meaning. This aspect also foreshadows the limitations of science. Physics and chemistry explain causal relations among phenomena, but cannot touch the essence. Science remains at the level of representation, replacing intuition with concepts. Schopenhauer anticipated the dilemmas of modern physics. The observer effect in quantum mechanics seems to confirm that the subject cannot be ignored. This foresight received astonishing confirmation in the 20th century. Although Einstein did not fully accept Schopenhauer's will theory, he acknowledged that in relativity, the observer's frame of reference determines the spatiotemporal description of events. Even more interestingly, Bohr and Heisenberg's Copenhagen interpretation directly involves the act of observation affecting microscopic phenomena. A particle remains in superposition until the subject intervenes, causing it to collapse into a definite state. This seems to reenact Schopenhauer's claim on a scientific level: the world as representation cannot be separated from the knowing subject. Ordinary people might ask whether this means the external world does not exist independently. Schopenhauer's answer is no. The thing in itself does exist, but we can never know it in a non-representational way. The deeper science goes, the closer it approaches the boundary of representation, yet the less able it is to cross it. The principle of sufficient reason operates rigorously in the macro world, but appears as probability clouds in the micro realm. This is precisely the limit of the laws of representation manifesting. The inseparability of subject and object is not only the starting point of philosophy, but has become a paradox that modern science cannot avoid. Chapter 2. The world as representation. Second aspect. The eternal forms of the ideas. If the first aspect emphasizes the relationship between subject and object, the second delves into the inner hierarchy of representation. Schopenhauer introduces Plato's concept of ideas, but gives it new meaning. Ideas are the eternal forms of will's objectification at different levels, not independent spiritual entities. Time, space, and causality make individual things changeable and transient, but ideas, as archetypes of species, transcend these and remain eternal. For example, a specific oak tree grows, ages, and dies, governed by causal chains, but oak, as the objectification of natural force, is an eternal idea. Individuals are temporary manifestations of ideas, like droplets in relation to the ocean. Schopenhauer divides nature into levels: inorganic minerals, plants, animals, and finally humans. Each level corresponds to an idea. The higher the level, the more fully will is objectified. The human body is the most complex objectification, with the brain serving the needs of will. The idea of minerals is the simplest: gravity and crystalline forms. Plants add reproductive impulse. Animals gain movement and sensation. Humans, through reason, reflect on themselves. When the French sculptor Auguste Rodin created the thinker, he was not copying a specific model, but capturing the eternal form of the idea of human thought. Though motionless, the bronze figure conveys the eternal struggle of will at the intellectual level. This is exactly what Schopenhauer meant: artistic genius into its ideas, stripping away the contingencies of individual representation to present pure objectification. Rodin in his later years recalled that the statue gave him a sense of tranquility beyond time, as if touching the core of human will. Ordinary readers may find this abstract, but consider everyday language. When we say lions are fierce, we do not mean every individual lion, but the idea of lion as a species. Schopenhauer thus bridges Plato with the empirical world, avoiding pure abstraction's emptiness. Ideas are not blueprints created by God, but the necessary forms of will and representation, manifesting as individuals through the principle of sufficient reason. This aspect reveals the aesthetic potential of the world of representation. When we purely cognize ideas, we temporarily escape the drive of will and enter desireless tranquility. This foreshadows the aesthetic liberation discussed later. Scientific cognition remains at individual relations and causal explanations. Art leaps to ideas, intuiting the eternal. Schopenhauer thus explains why natural beauty, though moving, is less profound than artistic beauty. Nature is a jumble of individuals, while art purifies ideas. He also discusses the special status of mathematics. It studies forms of space and time, approaching ideas, but remaining abstract rather than intuitive. Geometric figures are manifestations of lower-level ideas. Schopenhauer particularly admired Dutch landscape painting, believing painters captured the subtle interweaving of plant and inorganic ideas through light and color. The 18th-century English garden designer Humphrey Repton, when creating natural-style gardens, sought to recreate nature's ideas rather than pile up individual plants. He arranged lakes, trees, and hills into harmonious wholes, unconsciously intuiting the eternal forms of natural forces. Visitors strolling through would briefly forget personal desires, feeling only the pure beauty of space and existence. This is the prelude to what Schopenhauer calls the aesthetic state, when we no longer view scenery as objects to possess or use, but contemplate them as ideas, will temporarily recedes. The hierarchy of ideas also explains why the human body most attracts artists. It concentrates the highest objectification of will, containing traces of all lower forces. Muscle tension arises from resisting gravity, skin glow from chemical reactions, the depth of gaze from intellectual awakening. A perfect Greek statue like Myron's Discobolus is not merely a frozen moment of an athlete, but the eternal manifestation of human will at the intersection of strength and beauty. Chapter 3. The World is Will. First aspect. Direct knowledge through the body. The first 2 volumes discuss representation. This volume turns to the thing in itself. The world is will. Schopenhauer's breakthrough lies in starting not from abstract reasoning, but from the most immediate experience, our own body. The body has a dual identity for us. On one hand, it is an object in representation, governed by space, time, and causality, observable by others. On the other, it is the direct manifestation of will. Hunger drives us to eat, fatigue to sleep. Desire to approach these are not externally imposed, but inner impulses of will, with the body as their visible form. Toothache is not a representation of brain nerves, but will's direct protest at that level. For example, in Anna Karenina, the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy depicts Anna's inner conflict. Social norms demand restraint, but bodily impulse, the desire for Vronsky, surges as an irresistible will. Anna's final choice is precisely the breakthrough of will against the laws of representation. Tolstoy, deeply influenced by Schopenhauer, later gave up his property and pursued an ascetic life, putting recognition of will into practice. Schopenhauer emphasizes that this knowledge is intuitive, non-conceptual. Animals have will too, but humans add rational representation. Will is blind, purposeless impulse, not limited to individual survival. It can even destroy the individual. Suffering arises from will's perpetual dissatisfaction. Satisfaction of desire leads immediately to new desire. Non-satisfaction brings pain. Reason is merely a tool that justifies will after the fact. Ordinary people often equate will with rational choice, but Schopenhauer points out that reason is will's servant, finding excuses for desires. The true motive is will itself. This explains why many decisions seem irrational in hindsight, yet felt inevitable at the time. For instance, a merchant takes risky investments, knowing the dangers, yet cannot resist the drive for wealth. Will is singular and timeless as the thing in itself, splitting into multiplicity only in representation. Schopenhauer thus avoids dualism. Body and mind are not parallel, but dual manifestations of the same will. This insight profoundly influenced later psychology. After reading Schopenhauer, Freud modeled the id as a prototype of blind, impulsive will, with ego and superego as regulatory mechanisms at the representational level. Dreams especially reveal will's direct manifestation. Rational oversight relaxes. Repressed desires emerge symbolically. Freud called Schopenhauer his precursor because the latter had already noted that consciousness is only the surface of will, with most impulses operating in darkness. French neuroscientist Jean-Pierre Changeux, studying unconscious decision-making, found that the brain decides before the person becomes aware, seemingly experimentally confirming Schopenhauer's claim. Will precedes. Reason weaves explanations afterward. Every heartbeat, every breath is will's persistence at the lowest level. We feel its protest directly only in illness or aging. Sexual desire is especially strong because it concerns not just individual survival, but species continuation, the strongest affirmation of will transcending the individual. Schopenhauer thus sees love as will's cunning trick. Lovers think they pursue personal happiness, but are manipulated by the reproductive instinct. Chapter 4. The world is will. Second aspect, objectification levels in nature. Will manifests not only in individual bodies, but objectifies throughout nature. Schopenhauer views natural forces as different grades of will, becoming progressively more complex from low to high. The lowest are universal forces like gravity, magnetism, electricity, everywhere yet without individual centers. Minerals are low-degree objectifications, appearing as crystals and chemical reactions. Plants have growth and reproduction, but no cognition, no conscious suffering. Animals add sensation and movement. Will grows stronger, suffering appears. Humans are highest, with will fully expressed through intellect, capable of reflecting on its own suffering. Conflict is will's essence. The same will splits into individuals and fights itself. A lion eating an antelope is not malice, but will tearing at itself. Beneath nature's beautiful scenery lies endless struggle. Plants compete for sunlight, animals hunt and flee. When Darwin observed species on the Galapagos in the 19th century, he discovered the cruelty of competition. Survival of the fittest is merely the expression of will's blind impulse. Schopenhauer, predating Darwin, foresaw this natural selection's ruthlessness, but went deeper. It is not progress, but eternal self-negation. Human society is the highest stage of will's objectification. States, wars, trade are all manifestations of will seeking survival and expansion. History has no true progress, only will's cycles in time. Schopenhauer criticizes Hegel's rational history as illusion within representation. But this is not utter pessimism. Recognizing will's essence is the first step toward liberation. Ordinary people immerse in representation, believing happiness achievable through pursuit. The awakened see will's eternal thirst and turn to asceticism. Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger in his later years read Schopenhauer and was deeply inspired, incorporating the concept of will into his thinking about life. The grades of nature also explain beauty. Higher ideas are more complex and more captivating to contemplate. The human body, as the most perfect objectification, is why portraiture and sculpture are most moving. This view also explains why animal portraits rank below human, yet above still life in art. The alertness and wildness in an animal's eyes convey Will's intense objectification at the level of sensation and movement. American photographer Ansel Adams, shooting Yosemite National Park's majestic landscapes, sought to capture light's eternal instant on rock and waterfall. He later said those photographs were not records of scenery, but expressions of natural forces as ideas. Viewers gazing at his black and white works often forget time, left only with pure, contemplative pleasure. Schopenhauer believed this pleasure peaks when appreciating the human face, which concentrates both individuality and species characteristics. Da Vinci's Mona Lisa and her mysterious smile are the subtle expression of will where intellect and emotion intertwine. The viewer is drawn in, yet cannot fully possess the secret of that expression, only immersing in the intuition of the idea. The root of social conflict can also be understood from objectification levels. Human will, being highest, is most greedy and destructive. Wars and conquests are merely will's blind expansion, seeking greater space, while lower natural forces only passively obey. Chapter 5: The Source of Suffering and the Meaninglessness of Life. Schopenhauer's most famous assertion: life swings like a pendulum between suffering and boredom. Unfulfilled desire is suffering. Fulfilled desire immediately leads to boredom. Happiness is only a brief negative state, the absence of suffering, not a positive existence. Positive joy does not exist, only relative relief. He compares life to a beggar. Today's alms mean hunger tomorrow. Or to Sisyphus, pushing a boulder uphill, just reaching the top, it rolls down again. Or a debtor briefly cleared, only for new debts to rise. German composer Richard Wagner, deeply influenced by Schopenhauer, used endless harmonies in his opera Tristan und Isolde to express desire's eternal unsatisfaction. The lover's passion reaches its peak, yet can only resolve in death. This is the ultimate expression of will's impulse. Wagner corresponded with Schopenhauer, saying his philosophy revealed life's truth, like music. Schopenhauer dissects the illusion of happiness. We often project hope onto the future, believing goal achievement brings joy. But once achieved, new emptiness emerges. Truly lasting happiness does not exist because will's essence is lack. We take health for granted until illness reminds us. We grow bored in peace and long for it only in war. This explains why the rich are often emptier, basic desires satisfied, higher one's power, fame are harder to fulfill and more illusory. Ordinary people chase wealth and status, thinking they bring happiness. Schopenhauer gently reminds us these are mere phantoms in representation, disguises of will. Fame is like an echo, the louder, the emptier. Life is meaningless because the individual is only a temporary tool of will. Once reproduction is complete, the mission ends and death arrives. Reproduction continues will, but intensifies suffering. Schopenhauer thus critiques optimism. Leibniz's best of all possible worlds is mere irony. Yet recognizing suffering can reduce the extra disappointment from blind pursuit. Suffering is like fire. Once it burns away desires, calm may become visible. In his later years, Schopenhauer lived alone in Frankfurt, walking daily, reading, and playing the flute, an almost ascetic life, yet not a complete denial of existence. He appreciated art, loved animals, and cared for stray dogs precisely because these briefly relieved will's thirst. 20th century Indian philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, traveling in the West, often quoted Schopenhauer's view of suffering, reminding audiences that true freedom lies not in adding more desires, but in seeing their illusion. Modern mindfulness therapy unintentionally echoes Schopenhauer's insight. By attending to the present, we temporarily suspend the chain of desires and experience moments of will-less peace. Unemployment, heartbreak, illness. These low points in life often become turning points because they force us to confront will's eternal unsatisfaction. Many people gain inner composure after desperation precisely because suffering burns away excessive illusions. Schopenhauer does not advocate actively seeking suffering, but emphasizes that when it comes, do not flee, use it to see the truth. Chapter 6: Aesthetic Tranquility, the Pure Knowledge of Genius. The first path to liberation is aesthetic contemplation. When we purely intuit ideas and escape will's drive, the subject becomes the pure will-less subject of knowing, and the object becomes the eternal idea. Time, space, and causality recede. Only pure form remains. Self-consciousness vanishes, leaving only the joy of knowing. Aesthetic pleasure is desireless joy, watching a sunset without wanting to possess it, simply immersing in it. Will falls silent temporarily, suffering pauses. This is the purest happiness, because it involves no interest. Art is the reproduction of ideas. Natural beauty is lower, ideas appearing by chance. Artistic beauty is higher, intentionally purified. Architecture expresses the ideas of gravity and support, sculpture, the human body, painting, light and emotion, poetry, the highest capable of expressing the deepest conflicts of human will. In Johannes Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring, that tranquil gaze embodies pure contemplation. The viewer forgets self and enters a timeless state, as if encountering eternity. Genius lies in maintaining this pure knowledge for long periods. Ordinary people experience it only briefly. Genius is like a mirror, reflecting the world's essence, yet itself desireless. Music is unique. It does not copy ideas, but is a direct copy of will itself, hence most profound and moving. Beethoven's symphonies present melody as will's primal impulse, striking the soul without representational mediation. Schopenhauer explains the appeal of tragedy. Witnessing great characters destroyed in will's conflicts gives us metaphysical consolation, recognizing life's essence and sublimating suffering. Greek tragedies like Oedipus show fate's ruthlessness as will's manifestation. Aesthetics offers temporary liberation, an oasis, allowing us to catch our breath in the desert of will. Ordinary people taste this state through art. Geniuses live in it. Though not an artist himself, Schopenhauer had exceptional musical appreciation, playing the flute daily to enter pure contemplation. He believed music differs from other arts because it does not depict ideas, but directly reproduces will's inner flow. Mozart's lightness is will playing at lower levels. Beethoven's late string quartets are will sublimation after highest conflict. Russian pianist Sergei Rachmaninoff, in exile in America, often fell into self-forgetfulness, performing composers Schopenhauer loved, carrying audiences into desireless joy. The sublime in tragedy lies in safely witnessing will's extreme struggle from a distance, rehearsing liberation. At the end of Shakespeare's King Lear, the old man cradling his dead daughter in grief, the audience does not merely sympathize but sublimates into metaphysical insight into life's impermanence. Modern films like Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal, with the knight playing chess with death, are contemporary reenactments of tragic pleasure, facing inevitable end. Human will's dignity and insignificance appear simultaneously. Chapter 7: Morality and Asceticism, the Path to Eternal Liberation. Ultimate liberation is the complete denial of will. The foundation of morality is compassion, recognizing that others' suffering is identical to one's own, because at essence, it is the same will. Individual separation in representation is illusion. Compassion pierces it, seeing, tat tivam asi, thou art that. The identity of suffering makes loving kindness possible. Justice is the lowest morality, not harming others, because harming others is harming oneself. Loving kindness is higher, actively sharing suffering. Schopenhauer praises Christian charity, Buddhist compassion, and Hindu non-violence. These are natural expressions of compassion. But true saints go beyond morality into asceticism, denying the will to live itself. Asceticism includes chastity denying sexual desire, the strongest affirmation of will, voluntary poverty denying property desire, obedience denying ego, and voluntary suffering accelerating recognition. Indian ascetics, sitting by the Ganges, meditate lifelong, refusing food to the limit. Christian hermits renounce the world for solitary prayer. These embody will's self-denial. Saints see life as suffering and reproduction as will's continuation, so they choose not to procreate, not to extend the chain of pain. Schopenhauer concludes with Eastern wisdom, Vedanta's Brahman-Atman unity, and Buddhism's nirvana are the turning point of will from affirmation to denial. Through complete recognition, will self-annihilates, entering painless, eternal peace. Swedish explorer Sven Hedin, traveling in Tibet, met lamas who practiced lifelong ascetic meditation. Their calm transcended ordinary understanding. Hedin wrote that their eyes were like clear mirrors, reflecting no desire. Asceticism is not suicide. Suicide denies the individual yet affirms will seeking escape from pain, while still driven by it. True denial calmly accepts death as it comes. In his later years, Schopenhauer faced death with great calm, preparing his will and affairs without fear, because through philosophy he had reached will's turning point. British adventurer T.E. Lawrence, riding alone in the Arabian desert, read Schopenhauer and wrote, "Life is like a brief candle, the brighter it burns, the faster it extinguishes. Only by seeing this can one maintain inner peace amid sandstorms." Biographies of Eastern saints most moved Schopenhauer, like Prince Siddhartha renouncing his throne, practicing asceticism, and attaining enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. In that moment, will no longer affirmed itself, but turned completely to denial. Christian mystics like St. Francis of Assisi, giving up wealth to converse with birds and beasts, embodied compassion's ultimate extension. Schopenhauer believed true saints are extremely rare. Most people can only gradually approach liberation through compassion and aesthetics. Yet even small acts of kindness, like helping a stranger, already pierce the illusion of individual separation and representation, touching the unity of the thing in itself. Ultimately, Schopenhauer's philosophy is not dogma, but an invitation to awaken from daily blind pursuit, appreciate the beauty of the world as representation, and be ready, when necessary, to deny will's eternal thirst. Schopenhauer's thought is not despair, but an invitation to liberation after awakening. The world as will is the source of suffering, as representation a beautiful dream. The awakened both appreciate beauty and transcend suffering, ultimately attaining inner freedom. Ordinary people can begin with compassion and gradually approach. The few saints fully realize it. This book is like a mirror, reflecting our daily blind pursuit while lighting the flame of liberation. After reading it, you may not immediately become a saint, but you will gain more composure in life, more compassion, greater understanding of others, and deeper detachment from the world.